Welcome to episode 2 of Your Average Fight Fan. I am Juan, your host. We are going to go over last night's UFC event. UFC on ESPN 10. Jessica Ivers Calvillo. So it was a good fight. It was a good fight card. I guess I was mistaken when I said it wasn't the best card UFC could have put on. It was actually a really pretty decent card. I was very surprised, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think all but one, I would think, but most of the fights were very, very good. I enjoyed it very much, so I'm glad about that. Dana White and the matchmakers, once again, they work their magic. They usually deliver, regardless of where they are, whether they're in the UFC Apex, which is this very small venue, or if they're in Jacksonville, or if they're in Vegas. Wherever they go, they usually deliver. So good for them, good for the UFC, and most of all, good for us, the fans, because we're really the ones that win all the time when they put out good fights. So congrats to them, kudos to the fighters, and let's keep rolling. All right, we're gonna start in reverse order. I guess it wouldn't really be reverse order. I guess in this case it would be real order. Last time I started from top, worked my way back down to the bottom. This time I'm starting from the prelims, working my way up. So the first fight that I actually caught, I didn't catch the first early prelim fight, and I didn't catch the first fight on the prelims, but I did catch the second fight and every fight after that. So the first fight I caught was the knockout of Julia Avila. That was nice. That was a very cool it was more of a stoppage more than anything. I wouldn't call it a knockout. She did catch her with a really nice, clean hit, which I believe started with the knee, and then from there it just kind of snowballed for her opponent. So it was more of a stoppage from punches, but it was a 22-second stoppage. First round, 22 seconds. That's pretty awesome for her. So congrats to Julia Avila. She did a great job. Good for her. And then right after that, it was also a good fight. This one went to decision, but it was a dominant decision. So Merab, good. Congrats to Merab for coming up big and doing his job. He took out Gustavo Lopez. It was a unanimous decision win, but two of the judges had it 30-26, and actually one of them had it 30-25. So, very good job from Merab. That was a good quality victory for him. Even though it was last minute replacement, it was a very good showing. He showed that once again he's not just your average wrestler. He is definitely an excellent wrestler. He had a record. His career record for most takedowns in one fight was 12. He broke that record last night. He got 13 takedowns against Gustavo Lopez. So this was, record-breaking, for lack of a better term. This was awesome. This was really cool. So congrats to Merab. And Ray Longo was not kidding when he said this kid is a beast, and this kid is he's one of the best out there. So he's got great training partners, and it showed. It really, really showed. He did not look gassed at all. He just got takedown after takedown, and he had really good ground and pound with those takedowns. He did really well. Out of 15 minutes, which is what the fight lasted, 15 minutes, 3 rounds, he had 7 minutes and 36 seconds of ground control. So he controlled his opponent on the ground for 7 minutes and 36 seconds. That's pretty impressive. Regardless of the weight class, regardless of the competition, if you can hold someone down for 7.5 minutes, practically half of the fight, if you can hold that person down, whether you're ground and pounding or you're going for submissions, which he did go for submissions. Unfortunately for him, he did not get the submissions, but he did try. Excellent fight. So congratulations to Merab. Great fight. Right after that was another pretty dominant fight. It was I think it's Maria, actually. It's Maria Agapova. She was fighting Hannah Cifers. She was the favorite. She was a minus 350 favorite. So coming into the fight, people were already expecting her to win. Hannah Cifers was coming off a submission loss to Mackenzie Dern about 2 weeks ago. So she was already coming off of a loss, trying to get back in the win column. It did not go well for her. Maria Agapova had she was 5 inches taller. She had a 6.5-inch reach advantage. And she was, not only was this her UFC debut, she was fighting in Invicta prior to this, but she used all of her advantages. And she's young, too. She's 23 years old. She was using her advantage very, very well. Like I said, 6.5-inch reach advantage, 5 inches taller than Hannah Cifers. She had good striking. I mean, the way she finished her was pretty awesome. You don't usually see somebody get finished in the way that she finished Hannah Cifers. It was a first round standing rear naked choke, which actually ended up Hannah Cifers fell to her back and ended up getting choked out with rear naked choke. But it started as a standing rear naked choke. Maria Agapova, she was able to take her back while standing against the cage, put her hooks in, got 2 hooks in. She snuck in the choke and was, pressing, trying to get the choke, trying to get Hannah Cifers to tap out. And Hannah Cifers fell backward. So she fell towards her back with Maria Agapova on her back. She squeezed and got the rear naked choke. It was very, very impressive. 23 years old and UFC debut. Gets a first round rear naked choke finish. That's really, really impressive. This girl, Hannah Cifers, is no slouch. So, good job. Good job, Maria Agapova. Good job. Congratulations. She did a really good job. I was impressed. Let's move on to the next one. After that was Jordan Espinoza, who was a minus 170 favorite, taking on Mark De La Rosa, who was a plus 150 underdog. Mark De La Rosa has an interesting nickname. They call him Bumblebee. I don't know why. I'd actually be interested to know why that is. But so Jordan Espinoza. He came out pretty aggressive in the first round. He had really good footwork. He was keeping the distance and keeping himself at range, which worked out pretty well for him. While using his footwork, which he had really good footwork, Mark De La Rosa would try to clinch with him against the cage, which he was pretty successful at. The only thing was that he kept trying to go for a takedown. And while trying to go for the takedown, which, by the way, he tried for over 2 minutes in the first round to get a takedown, was not successful. But he was trying to go for a double leg, and then he was trying to go for a single leg. While doing this, his head was obviously down, because when you're trying to go for a single leg or a double leg, your body's like in a crouching form, So he this whole 2 minutes that he was doing this, Jordan Espinoza was just elbowing him and hammer fisting him in the body, elbowing him in the head, punching his gut, and that was very, very, very effective. To the point where he actually landed over 100 significant strikes during these clinch moments. So I'm not sure 100% how long this was going on for, but at one point it was for just over 2 minutes for just one of them, and it happened multiple times in the first round. So, it was a really good round for Jordan. It was a good strategy for Mark De La Rosa, but it just didn't pan out the way he was expecting it to. So, again, kudos to Espinoza on the first round. I scored at 10-9. Of course, I'm not a judge, obviously. I'm just, your average fight fan, but I scored a 10-9. Round 2, very similar to round 1. The footwork for Espinoza continued. Again, very good footwork. He was a little bit more dominant as far as landing strikes, just not as many. Because obviously in the first round he was up against the cage for most of the first round, so he was landing strikes, I guess you could say, off his back, even though he wasn't on the ground. It was more of defensive strikes, whereas round 2 it was more of I'm attacking you, trying to avoid the clinch. Even though, again, Mark De La Rosa did have a good game plan and he did clinch against the cage again in the second round. Only this time it only lasted about 30 seconds or so because Jordan Espinoza was probably expecting it at this point. So he was able to work his way out of it. So, again, kudos to Espinoza on round 2. I had it 10-9 again for Jordan Espinoza. So at this point, in my opinion, it was 2 rounds to none for Jordan Espinoza. Round 3, he got Jordan Espinoza got a quick takedown. But before he got the takedown, Mark De La Rosa was able to hit Jordan with a pretty clean shot and stunned Jordan Espinoza. So I think that was the reason why he went for the takedown. Regardless of why he went for it, he was successful in getting the takedown. He was actually doing pretty decent ground and pound. He attempted a Darce choke, which was not successful, but had a pretty good attempt at it. After that, Mark De La Rosa gets up. This guy's tough, man. Super, super tough. And again, Jordan Espinoza, excellent footwork, was doing his thing, and ended up getting a second takedown in the third round, which in my opinion won him the fight. Because if you're already up 2-0, there's only so much De La Rosa could have done. Maybe go for a stoppage, knockout, submission, that type of thing. Or possibly get a 10-8 round and maybe get a draw, but it didn't look like that was his plan. His plan was like he was trying to knock him out or submit him. But again, I had this last round 3 for Espinoza 10-9. I had it 30-27. 2 judges also had it 30-27, and one of the judges had it 30-26. Good victory for Jordan Espinoza. Unanimous decision victory. Good for him. Congrats. Good fight. I liked it. I enjoyed it. After that, we went to Andre Fili against Charles Jourdain. Touchy-Fili. Andre Touchy-Fili was a negative 230 favorite. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I see Andre Touchy-Fili, for some reason, I just picture his nickname changing from Touchy to head to toe. This guy is tattooed from his neck all the way down to his ankles. He looks like I don't know, he's so tatted up. He's got tattoos everywhere. So I don't know. Whenever I see him, I think of head to toe for some reason. Yeah, so he had a pretty decent reach advantage. He had a 5-inch reach advantage. Charles Jourdain is a tough guy, man. Tough guy. Yeah, this was a good fight. I really enjoyed this fight. Again, Andre Fili was a negative 230 favorite, and Charles Jourdain was a plus 190 underdog coming into the fight. Andre Fili had more fights. Charles Jourdain had some really impressive fights outside the UFC. And coming into this fight, he was trying to make a big splash. Of course, he did get a pretty awesome knockout in his previous fight against Doo Ho Choi. But this was a bit different. This was a completely striking match, or we thought it was. But Andre Fili was very smart, very, very smart. Used his reach, was able to keep the fight standing for most of the fight, but he was the aggressor when it came to takedowns. And he's not usually the aggressor. He's usually the guy trying to fight off a takedown attempt. He's usually the guy trying to defend it. But he was very, very smart. I had round 1 pretty close. I didn't even want to score it. Sometimes it's so close that I just don't even want to. I don't want to give someone the round. I got to be honest. Judges get a lot of bad rep, but they have a tough job. They really do. I didn't score the first round. I just had it a very close round 1. I left it unscored. It's I mean, I guess due to the takedown at the very end of the round, late in the first round, I guess it could have gone to Andre Fili. It's a tough round to score. They both landed. They both kicked, punched each other. So again, it was tough to score, but I didn't score it while it was happening live. I didn't score it. Round two, though, round two was a little bit different. Round two, Andre Fili was more aggressive. He was more active. He threw more than he did in the first round. I think that he was, again, the more aggressive fighter. So I think that he pushed the pace. He started in the first round. He started throwing some high kicks, and they were pretty effective, even though they weren't knockout kicks or whatever that whatever you want to call them. They weren't one hit knockout kicks, but they were landing and they were effective. They were stunning Charles Jourdain. They were landing. They were pushing him back. They were, sometimes when you're blocking a kick with your arms or your forearms or your wrists or your hands, it hurts. It hurts a lot, because you're blocking a kick. You're not blocking a punch. You're not blocking, a close range shot. You're blocking a kick, and that's the strongest part of the body, which actually ended up happening to Andre Fili. In the second round, Charles Jourdain landed a kick. I couldn't say land. He threw a kick. He threw a high kick. Andre Fili blocked it with his right arm, if I remember correctly, his right arm. And he was kind of almost in the motion of throwing a punch, like a counter punch, with the same arm, but he kind of pulled back, and then he didn't really use that right arm for most of that round. He may have thrown it once or twice after that, but not much after that in the second round. Even the announcers were saying maybe his arm is broken, maybe his wrist is broken, because he wasn't throwing it. But it just ended up that he was really hurt. Like I said, when you're blocking kicks, it does hurt quite a bit. So his arm was hurt, but it wasn't broken. He was just kind of, trying to just kind of get through the pain a little bit so he can start using it again in the third round. And that's actually what he did. But going back to the second round, Charles Jourdain did throw a lot. He did land a lot, but he didn't land enough. Andre Fili landed more. He did get the late takedown, and he threw, again, more head kicks. So I gave the round to Andre Fili, 10-9. And then round three. Round three was a little bit more of the same. He did continue with those high kicks. They were effective. He was again the more active fighter. He was the aggressor. He was kind of maintaining his stance as the guy moving forward rather than the guy moving back. And the judges always see that as a positive. There's some fighters that win moving back, but for the most part, you want to be moving forward. You want to be the aggressor. You want to be landing more. You want to be throwing first. And in my opinion, that's what I saw from Andre Fili. And let me tell you, at the very end of that fight, Andre Fili landed three more takedowns. So he had a takedown in round one, he had a late takedown in round two, and then he had 3 takedowns in round 3. So he had 5 total takedowns. That's going to win you a fight most of the time. If your opponent doesn't have any takedowns, you are landing more and you are the aggressor, and you have more takedowns than your opponent, most of the time that's going to win you a fight. And in this case, it won him the fight. Now, granted, Charles Jourdain did land some pretty big shots at the end of the fight. He was landing clean, crisp shots, but it was just too little, too late. The judges already had the victory for Andre. It was more of a, hey, I'm still here. You didn't beat me. You didn't take me out. You didn't finish me type of thing, where I'm going to land clean, crisp shots. But it just, again, it wasn't enough. It was just too late. So they did give and actually, you know what? One of the judges actually had it for Charles Jourdain. It was a split decision victory. So yeah, it's so that first round, one of the judges had it for Jourdain. So it's it's like Dana always says, if you can keep it out of the hands of the judges, you want to do that. But at the same time, that's not a realistic, real world scenario. These guys are at the top of their game. They're in the best organization in the world. You're fighting top guys. Even when you're not even ranked, you're still fighting top guys. You might not be fighting top guys in the world because they're not top 15, but they're still excellent fighters. So the whole keep it out of the hands of the judges thing is a little, I don't know. I don't want to bash a legend like Dana White, but just that phrase, it's a little crazy. But anyway, back to the decision. It was a split decision victory for Touchy-Feely. So congratulations to him. I think Charles Jourdain put up a pretty decent showing. He looked good, but Andre Fili looked better. So that's really what it came down to. He just looked better. He was more aggressive. He threw more. He landed more, and the takedowns were, the edge, in my opinion, that won him the fight. So congrats to Andre Fili. Okay, moving on. Charles Rosa against Kevin Aguilar. Charles Rosa was the underdog in this fight. He was a plus 160. Kevin Aguilar was the favorite at minus 180. This was a close fight. It really was. Another back and forth 3-round. I don't like using the word war. They're not soldiers. They're not fighting for their lives. I prefer the word battle, even though a lot of fighters always say I'm going to war with this guy. I don't know. I just have a very high respect for soldiers and what they do. The military is something special. Those guys are actually at war. Those guys are really out there, putting their lives on the line. So I don't like using, I'm going to war with this guy. For me, it's a battle. For me, it's a fight. But, some fighters usually say I'm going to war. So, in my opinion, it's a battle. So this was a very back and forth battle, hard fought fight. You know what? Charles Rosa was smart. I think Kevin was landing more. He was landing some good body shots, kicks, punches to the body. I think that was affecting Charles Rosa, but I think Charles was smarter. Charles was he was using leg kicks to his advantage. He was trying to keep the distance. He was throwing a lot of winding punches, which, in my opinion, they don't really benefit anybody. Keep in mind, I'm not a professional fighter. I don't fight for a living. What I'm doing right now is I'm trying to make my career. This is what I like to do. I like to talk about fights. I'm not an expert. The show is called Your Average Fight Fan for a reason. I'm just a really passionate fan. I like MMA. I've been watching MMA for a really long time. I like boxing. I like martial arts. I'm not an expert. I just like to watch. I enjoy it, and I like talking about it. So, I'm not trying to tell you what to watch, what not to watch, what to watch for, who to watch, who to root for. That's not what I'm here for. I like talking about fights. I enjoy watching these guys, put their 3, 4, 5, 8, 12-week fight camps on the line for something that they believe that they're the best in the world at. That's what I enjoy. So if you're like me, if you're listening, I'm 25 minutes in now, or 24 and a half minutes in. If you're like me, if you're still listening, then you're interested in fights. You like fights, you like the UFC, you like MMA in general. And I just think that in this case, Charles Rosa was the smarter fighter, which ultimately won him this split decision, because that's what it was. It was a split decision victory for Charles Rosa. Now, I want to go back to If you guys heard the first episode of this podcast, I talked about Charles Rosa fighting 33 days ago. He fought Bryce Mitchell, who is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but Charles Rosa is a black belt in jiu-jitsu under Ricardo Laborio. Again, if you listen to it, I'm not going to go into it again, but him fighting 33 days after getting dominated by Bryce Mitchell, the way he got dominated, is not only just him being here is impressive, but then fighting the fight that he did and winning. Granted, it was a split decision, yes, but 20 years from now, it doesn't matter what it was. 20 years from now, you look at his record and it says W next to his name. That's all that matters. I was super impressed. He looked good physically. He did not get tired. He just looked like a fighter who was in a full training camp, fighting a guy who was the favorite. Kevin Aguilar was the favorite. Kevin Aguilar, again, like I said, it was landing the body shots, which theoretically would slow someone down. When you take a lot of body shots, you're doing so to kind of chop the tree down. You want to start from the bottom and work your way up. That slows fighters down. That's the same reason why people leg kick. They kick the legs, because if you can't throw a punch with all your force, if you're not using your legs, then those jabs, those right crosses, those 1-2s, they don't become effective anymore. So by Charles understanding that taking the body shots was not working, was a detriment to his goal, which was winning this fight, he started chopping the legs, and that's what got him the victory. I think he was a smarter fighter. I think he adjusted when he needed to adjust, and I think that his adjustments won him the fight. He even defended a late takedown attempt in round 3. Which again, if now keep in mind, if Kevin Aguilar would have landed that takedown attempt in round 3, most likely they would have gave him the round and gave him the fight. Because Charles Rosa was able to defend that takedown and the leg kicks, I think won him the round and that fight. My opinion. Again, not an expert, just a fan. But this is what I saw, this is what I believe. So I want to give a huge congratulations to Charles Rosa for, getting probably the worst beating, even though he wasn't getting beat up, he was getting dominated on the ground, of his career against Bryce Mitchell, to coming back 33 days later and beating a very, very game Kevin Aguilar, who again was the favorite. So congratulations to Charles Rosa. I think I'm blabbering now. I'm rambling. But anyway, congrats. Moving on. Co-main event. Carl Roberson against Marvin Vettori. In this case, Marvin Vettori was the favorite. He was the minus 240. Carl Roberson was plus 200. If you recall, Carl Roberson missed weight again. That was his second consecutive time missing weight. Last time he missed it by I can't remember. I think it was 1 pound. I want to say 1 pound. He missed it by 1 pound. This time he missed it by 4.5 pounds. He was 190.5 pounds at the weigh-ins. So sometimes when you don't cut those extra pounds, it's to your benefit. A lot of times it is actually. Again, if you heard my first episode, you hear me talking about people who miss weight on purpose, act like it was so difficult for me to miss weight. And don't get me wrong, it is very, very difficult to make weight. But sometimes they use it to their advantage. To have the extra pounds, and not only the extra pounds, but the advantage of not having to put your body through that. In this case, it was not that way. The outcome was the complete opposite. It was a pretty, it wasn't a equal fight. I wouldn't say that. It wasn't, Carl Roberson was using some footwork. Marvin Vettori went for a takedown. He got it. I'm sorry. Carl Roberson went for a takedown. He got it. However, Marvin Vettori reversed it. He reversed the takedown, and actually started doing some ground and pound. So those were pretty nasty. He was landing some good ground and pound there. And then Carl Roberson was actually able to get back to his feet, which is when Marvin actually snuck in a Darce choke, which was pretty cool. Well, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. It was not a Darce choke. It was not. It was a guillotine. I apologize. It was a guillotine. He attempted to get the guillotine to where, again, they were up against the cage. Robertson was, using the cage to get back up. He was on his feet. This is where Marvin tried to get the guillotine in. And then Carl Robertson actually does a somersault, like front flip off the cage to avoid the guillotine, and actually was successful in avoiding it. So that was pretty cool. I like that. But it didn't last much longer after that. Marvin Vettori was actually able to keep Carl Robertson under his control and was able to sneak in the rear naked choke and actually submit him, not too long after that. Pretty cool looking somersault front flip off the cage. So again, congrats to Marvin Vettori. That was actually his third straight win and his 11th first round finish. So that's pretty cool. So congratulations to him, Marvin Vettori. I hope, I don't know, but I hope he has a number next to his name when he wakes up on Monday morning. Or is it maybe Tuesday morning? I forgot when the rankings come out. But he's a very cool guy, even though he can lose it sometimes. He has a short temper, which, again, like I mentioned in my previous podcast, you can hear, you can watch the video where he goes nuts and just loses it against Carl Robertson when he finds out that he missed weight and he's not in the fight anymore. He had to pull out. But for the most part, he's a really cool guy. As far as I know, obviously I don't know the guy, just going by what I see and interviews and videos and stuff like that, and watching him train with his friends and stuff like that. He seems like a really cool guy. So congrats to him. Yeah, main event. Cynthia Calvillo, Jessica Ai. When the fight was, I want to say just before the weigh-ins, it was a pick'em fight. They were both minus 110. So there technically was no favorite, but they were both minus 110. So again, it's a pick'em. After the weigh-ins, after they saw how bad Jessica Ai looked, and of course she missed weight again for the second consecutive fight, they changed the odds. They actually made Cynthia Calvillo the favorite. So she actually went down to minus 140, and Jessica Ai jumped to positive plus 120. Excuse me, plus 120. So the odds changed, making Cynthia Calvillo, who was ranked number 10 at the time, the favorite against the number 1 ranked Jessica Ai. If you recall, Cynthia Calvillo was moving up in weight. She was a 115-pound fighter, and this fight was fought at 125 pounds. So she moved up in weight because, again, if you recall, she missed weight her last fight. So she said, that will never happen again. I'm not missing weight anymore. So she took the initiative and said, you know what, I'm moving up. I'm going to go to 125. If I'm too small, I'll figure it out. I signed the contract. I missed weight. My bad. That'll never happen again. And so that doesn't happen again, I'm going to make sure by moving up a weight class. So she moved up 10 pounds to 125 and had an excellent fight against Jessica Ai. Excellent fight. Very smart fighter. You're talking about Jessica Ai, who, again, is the number 1 ranked fighter at 125, fought for a title against Shevchenko. Granted, she did get knocked out against Shevchenko, but Shevchenko is, in my opinion, the top 3 best female fighters on the planet. My opinion. Debatable, but my opinion, she's an excellent, excellent fighter. In my opinion, Amanda Nunes is the GOAT. She's the greatest fighter alive right now for females. She could probably go in there and fight some guys and probably beat them. It is possible. Will it happen? No, but it's possible. Taking her away, there's, again, debatable, but Shevchenko's up there. Top 3 in my opinion. Excellent fight. Cynthia Calvillo was way smarter fighter. Used her, I guess you can call newfound skills to her advantage because, again, she is a wrestler. She is a grappler. She likes to take the fight to the ground. She likes to submit you. She likes to beat you on the ground. She likes to ground and pound. She did that. However, she landed strikes. She made it a striking battle. It was scheduled for 5 rounds, and it went 5 rounds. She looked really good. Calvillo looked really good. You could tell that she. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. She was training at Team Alpha Male, which, if I'm not mistaken, is in Sacramento. I want to say Sacramento. I could be wrong. I apologize if I'm wrong. But she actually changed training camps and went to AKA, American Kickboxing Academy, which is in San Jose. Again, don't quote me on that. I'm pretty positive, but I'm not 100% sure. But AKA, American Kickboxing Academy, which has absolute monsters. Daniel Cormier, Cain Velasquez, Habib Nurmagomedov. There are absolute monsters in that gym. She went over there and trained with these guys. I mean, you got to have some balls to go there and train with these guys. These guys are at the very, very, very top of this sport. Daniel Cormier was a double champ, light heavyweight, heavyweight. Habib Nurmagomedov, lightweight champion, undefeated. Cain Velasquez was heavyweight champion, considered at the time the best heavyweight of all time. Luke Rockhold, I'm not sure if he's still there, but he was one of the training partners. Excellent fighter. Not so much towards the end of his career, but you got to give this guy credit, regardless if you don't like his attitude, if you think he's cocky, if you think he's arrogant. It doesn't matter. The guy was a monster in Strikeforce. He was a monster in the beginning of his UFC career. He was the champion at 185 pounds, whether you like it or not. The guy was a monster. Again, AKA is an excellent, excellent gym. She moved her camp there, and it showed. It really, really showed. She was able to, more or less do what she wanted. Okay, don't get me wrong. Jessica Ai was no slouch. She was in there. She was in the fight the entire time. But I'm gonna go round by round. Jessica Ai landed very little in the first round, where Cynthia landed more. She was throwing the head kick. If I'm not mistaken, it was a left high kick. She landed it twice in the first round. I scored the first round for Cynthia Calvillo 10-9. I thought she was just, again, smarter. She had a much better game plan, in my opinion. Game plans are very, very, very important when it comes to this high-level MMA. Of course, boxing as well. Game plans are just, if you can stick to your game plan the way that you worked for it, you worked at it in training in your gym, if you can stick to that, if you can follow your coach's directions, listen to your coaches, do what you need to do, and if you follow your game plan the way that she did in this fight, unless you're fighting, I don't know, she followed the game plan to a T. She was very smart. Again, I had the first round 10-9 for Cynthia, even though it was a close round. Round 2, she got an early takedown, took her back, maintained position for a pretty decent while. And when I say she, I'm talking about Cynthia. Cynthia was able to control position on the ground for a pretty good, decent amount of time. But Jessica Ai is pretty decent on the ground herself. She was a wrestler in high school, if I'm not mistaken. So again, I scored round 2, 10-9 for Cynthia. Moving on to round 3 of the main event. It was a little bit more of the same, in my opinion. But actually, Cynthia was more aggressive than she was in the first round, in the second round. So She actually got a takedown 1 minute in, or excuse me, 1 minute left in the round, which I think won her the round. She was doing some like level changing where she would jab and then she would jab to the body. She would go, she'd go high and then go low and then go high and then go low, and then sometimes when you level change, the purpose of that is to kind of confuse your opponent. To maybe sometimes when you go back and you watch highlights, one highlight that I don't like to talk about much is because I'm a big fan of Daniel Cormier. And I don't like to see him lose because I think he's such a good guy, and I think he's excellent at what he's doing. He's one of the best fighters of all time, in my opinion, and he's also, a great commentator. I just think he's a really good guy, and he's kind of like a role model for a lot of people. He's actually has no need to coach. The guy makes tons of money. He's super successful in everything he's ever done, but he still continues to go back to his old college, and he still continues to coach. He's just one of those guys. Everybody who knows him likes him. So I don't like to talk about this particular fight, but it's an example that works for this particular case. When he fought John Jones the second time, he actually got knocked out by a right high kick. Okay, the John Jones was being smart, throwing body kicks, low kicks and body kicks, mostly body kicks. The point of the body kicks were twofold. One, obviously they work. They're very effective. They, like I said before, they take sometimes you lose your breath when you get kicked in the gut, or you get kicked in the ribs. I mean, it hurts, and it's very effective. But if you continuously do that, whether it lands or not, if you continuously throw the same kick to the same spot or somewhere in the same vicinity, what's going to happen is your opponent is going to expect you to throw the kick to that same spot again. However, John Jones, because he threw the body kick so many times, he was able to fake the body kick and throw a head kick. And what happened? He landed that head kick and knocked Daniel Cormier out. Okay. My point here is what I was saying before about Cynthia. She was going high and going low. She was able to land that takedown because she kept jabbing the body. She was jabbing the body and jabbing the head. So the purpose of that is if you're jabbing someone's body, it's not going to do much. You're not doing that for damage. You're doing that to set a precedence because something is coming. However, your opponent doesn't know whether you're going to throw the jab to the body or you're going to do something else. Okay. So what she did was she level changes. Okay. What she did was sometimes she would fake the like the jab to the face or the jab to the head area, and then she would fake that and then go to the body. Okay. Or sometimes she would fake the body and go to the head. So again, she's level changing. She's changing levels. Maybe she's faking to go down and going up, or faking to go up, or faking up to go down. So in this case, what she was doing is she was faking the jab, and then that's how she got the late takedown in round 3. So again, I had round 3 scored for Cynthia Calvillo. Round 4, she got an early takedown, about a minute in, 4 minutes remaining in the round. A lot of time to work at that point. And she didn't keep it for very long. But Jessica I was able to get back up pretty quickly after about 2 minutes. But the thing with round 4 could have gone either way, in my opinion. Jessica I was the aggressor after she got back to her feet. I think that because Cynthia was going for the takedowns, I feel like she looked a little bit slower in round 4. And I think that's where the judges saw her be the aggressor, and they gave her round 4. I think. That's what I think. That's what I saw, and that's what I'm going with. But round 5 was more of the same of the first 3 rounds. Cynthia was using a good jab. She actually at one point landed a 1-2 and then landed another 1-2. So a jab and a cross, jab, cross. She had excellent footwork. And then she did look a lot more fresh. She looked the fresher fighter after looking tired in round 4. So it could have been more that she was just kind of gassed for that portion of round 4, and that's why she looked slower. But after taking the quick rest between rounds, she came back out in round 5 and looked fresh. So again, she had another takedown in round 5. She actually attempted a Peruvian necktie, which is pretty rare in MMA. You don't see that a lot, but she attempted it. It was not successful. But to wrap it all up, Jessica I landed a pretty nasty 1-2. Again, jab cross or jab hook late in the round. I don't think it was enough. I think at that point it was just too late. And obviously, Cynthia was already up 3 rounds. At that point, it was 3-1. Again, in my opinion. And I think that the judges and myself gave Cynthia round 5, making it a 4-1 victory by unanimous decision. 2 judges had it 49-46. 1 judge had it 48-47. So it was a really big victory for her, because you have to understand she's ranked number 10, and she's taken out the number 1 ranked fighter in the world. So that's, if you put that into perspective, that's a huge victory for her. She has the, she's on a playing field with. She can sit there and call out the champ now, because she just beat the number 1 ranked fighter in the world. So she can say, I want the title shot next. And realistically, they could say yes, and they should say yes. I'm not saying they will, but realistically, she could say that and they could say yes. That's a real possibility. So again, pretty dominant win. Takes out. Oh, and by the way, this is her first main event. She's never been in a main event before. Her first main event is against the number 1 ranked fighter in the world, and she dominated her 4 rounds to 1. Did she get a finish? No, she didn't. But she got a takedown in round 2, round 3, round 4, and round 5. Okay, that's a pretty dominant win in my opinion. The only better, more dominant win would have been a shutout, or a submission victory, or a finish. So congratulations to Cynthia Calvillo. Huge win. First main event, beats the number 1 ranked fighter, and now stands in a position to, fight for a title. Unbelievable. So congratulations to all the winners. The losers, it is what it is. You have to either, go back to the drawing board. You have to go back to training and work on what you did wrong. Watch videos. In this case, you're going to watch video on yourself to see what mistakes you made. It is what it is. It's part of the fight game. Nobody's untouchable. Even Habib. Habib is undefeated, but he's got weaknesses just like anybody else. Okay, John Jones, technically undefeated, even though his record says that he has 1 loss, he really doesn't. It was a disqualification against Hamill. This was, I don't know, in the beginning of his career. Everybody has weaknesses, and after every fight, even the champions go back and watch themselves. They want to know what they did wrong. They want to know what they can improve upon. Well, in this case, the losers are going to do that. And I don't like calling people a loser. They're not a loser. They just didn't have a great night, or the person they were fighting that night was better than they were. Okay? Champions lose fights. The great ones lose. It's just part of the game. If everybody could retire undefeated, it wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be fun to watch. Okay? So it is what it is. Again, big kudos to the winners. And for the ones that didn't win, just go back to the drawing board, see what you did wrong, watch video, get better. 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time, they do get better. So I just want to say we are working on intro music. Hopefully by the next episode, we should have an intro and an outro. I don't know if you guys noticed, I put up a logo. I now have a logo. I want to give a big thanks to my friend. He was the one that helped me out. You guys, by the way, if you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter handle is Your Average Fight Fan. It's spelled URAVGFIGHTFAN. Your Average Fight Fan. But I want to give a big shout out to my friend. It's Wrath of Goth. He was the one that created the logo for me. He's awesome. He is so talented. So big thank you to him. So please follow him on Twitter. Again, Wrath of Goth. WRATHOFGOTH. Wrath of Goth. Thank you again to him. Again, my Twitter handle is Your Average Fight Fan. URAVGFIGHTFAN. I will be posting my podcast links there. So if you want to give me a follow, thank you so much. Again, subscribe to this. So it helps a ton. Either way, like I said, I'll be posting my links there. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, you'll see my podcast be posted there. So big thanks to you guys for all the support. I will, like I said before, I will try to put out 2 podcasts every week. One before a fight event and one right after. So obviously today's Sunday. Last night was the UFC event on Saturday night, and today's Sunday. So I'll be posting it either Friday night or before the fight starts, after the weigh-ins, and then kind of like a pre and post show. Okay. So again, big thank you. And I hope you guys have an awesome night. I hope you enjoyed the shows, or excuse me, the fights. And yeah, let's keep this thing going. Big thanks. Again, my name is Juan. This is Your Average Fight Fan. Have a good night, guys. Thank you so much.